welcome to the Explainer. Let's just jump right in today. We're taking a magnifying glass to the criminal justice system, and we're going to ask a fundamental, honestly kind of uncomfortable question about how the law actually works out there on the street. Because, pop culture loves to tell us that slick-suited prosecutors and lawyers call all the shots at a crime scene, right? Barking orders at detectives. But today, we're exploring the fascinating and sometimes literally alarming gap between that legal theory and the street-level reality. To unpack this whole illusion, we're going to dive into an incredibly candid case study on the German legal system. It comes from the UN-affiliated institute UNFAI. Here, legal expert Eberhard Sigismund really pulls back the curtain. He reveals this hidden, everyday power struggle between the police and prosecutors. So, on paper, the law crowns the prosecutor as the undisputed master of the investigation. Sounds pretty official, right? But the reality on the ground? It's completely inverted. In roughly 80% of cases, it's actually the police running the entire show, completely on their own. Well, let's look at why the system was designed this way in the first place. The prosecutor is supposed to enforce what's called mandatory prosecution. Think of this as the ultimate fairness guarantee. It basically ensures authorities can't just arbitrarily let their friends off the hook or maliciously target their enemies. In this perfectly idealized model, the police are just the hands and the prosecutor is the brain. However, and this is a big however, the law also has to exist in the real, messy world. And that means equipping police with immense coercive powers so they can act instantly. We're talking about the power to make provisional arrests, launch undercover stings, run surveillance, demand identification right on the spot, the whole shebang. The Federal Administrative Court paints this beautiful, almost utopian legal picture of how this should work. They say every single action a police officer takes is supposed to form an integrated whole under the prosecutor's strict supervision. Basically, they're meant to move as one completely unified body. But that beautiful legal ideal absolutely shatters upon contact with reality. Remember that number? In about 80% of cases, the police are investigating entirely without the prosecutor's direction. Actually, prosecutors often have zero idea an investigation even happened until the police hand it over, neatly wrapped up with a bow. So why exactly does this happen? Well, it's pretty simple. Crimes are reported to cops on the street, not prosecutors sitting in offices. The officers are the gatekeepers. They dictate if the justice system even boots up at all. Take this real example from the study. A tourist gets scammed with a worthless 100-crown bill. The police talk to the shopkeeper, realize they can't prove intent right then and there, and they just don't write a report. Poof! Just like that, the prosecutor is bypassed entirely. And this street-level autonomy breeds some highly controversial tactics. Enter the informal preliminary talk. Because the police control the early narrative, they'll often just sit down with a suspect for a casual chat to extract intelligence. This happens way before defense lawyers or prosecutors are even notified. It's a massive tactical advantage that operates right in this murky legal gray area. To truly grasp this power struggle, picture this high-stakes scenario. A bank robber has taken a hostage. The heavily armed police tactical unit and the senior public prosecutor are both standing right there at the perimeter. A split-second decision is needed. Who actually gives the final order to shoot? It all comes down to a fundamental clash of mandates. The prosecutor's mindset is completely repressive. Preserve the crime scene, gather the evidence, build an airtight case. But the police? They're focused on a preventive mandate. Eliminate the immediate danger, secure the public, and save that hostage. And in this specific situation, the legal guidelines draw a very hard line. If direct force is needed and they just can't agree, the police completely overrule the prosecutor, no questions asked. The duty to save a life absolutely obliterates the duty to build a legal case. Now, adding fuel to this massive power shift is the sheer, frankly, crushing scale of the workload. To put this into perspective, in the year 2000 alone, German police handled around 6.5 million criminal offenses. Let's be real, there isn't enough coffee in the world for prosecutors to directly lead, manage, and oversee 6.5 million separate investigations from day one. It's just not physically possible. To handle that absolute avalanche of crime, police have to rely on incredibly sophisticated, massive databases, like the Iron Pole system. We're talking instant tracking for millions of wanted persons, stolen objects, and vehicles, all accessible directly from a squad car. But here is the real kicker. the supposed masters of the investigation, the prosecutors, do not have direct access to this data. And this information monopoly isn't just local, it extends across borders through Europol. That's a massive intelligence clearinghouse used for tracking international organized crime. Yet once again, prosecutors are completely locked out of the command center. They're entirely reliant on whatever curated intelligence the police decide to, well, spoon-feed them. So when we weigh all of this together, the police being first on the scene, wielding better funding, better tech, and total data dominance, the reality is pretty undeniable. Prosecutors are essentially reduced to rubber stamping, or at best, just checking the plausibility of investigations that the police have already totally wrapped up. Which brings the legal world to a massive crossroads. Think about it. If the police are already doing 80% of the heavy lifting and making all the real decisions, shouldn't we just rewrite the code of criminal procedure? Why not just make this police dominance official? Well, one highly controversial idea is legally forcing witnesses to testify directly to the police. But man, this is a dangerous game. It risks throwing a standard beat cop into a legal boxing ring with a highly aggressive, high-priced defense attorney. Without a seasoned prosecutor right there in their corner, the police could get completely outmaneuvered in a heartbeat. But on the flip side, we have the brutal reality of efficiency. Get this, every single year in Germany, there are over 1.5 million cases of petty theft where the thief is never found. Over 1 million. This creates a mountain of pointless paperwork, forcing prosecutors to formally review and close all these dead-end cases instead of fighting actual serious crime. Because of this massive gridlock, efficiency advocates argue we should just let the police independently terminate these unsolved minor cases. The thought process is, just bypass the prosecutor entirely, clear out the bottleneck, and let the system breathe. But this leaves us walking a real razor's edge. In a modern world dominated by massive data and split-second policing, yeah, streamlining the system sounds great on paper, but if we formally cut out the prosecutor's legal oversight just for the sake of efficiency, are we quietly trading away the very checks and balances that protect our civil liberties? Where exactly do we draw the line between a swift justice system and a police state? That is definitely a question we all need to be asking ourselves. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.